Welcome to After the Bell. I am your host, Lauren Kramer, and today I'm here with Lauren Connor. After the Bell is a podcast for cancer thrivers where we highlight resiliency and discuss stories from cancer patients, survivors, thrivers, and we're here to support those who are going through it right now. So I'm really excited to talk to you, Lauren, because I feel like you have a wonderful story and a wonderful purpose. And correct me if I'm missing anything, but Lauren is an owner of multiple CrossFit gyms. She is a former D1 track athlete, police officer. She's a mom of multiple children, and she also provides a program for breast cancer survivors in regards to fitness that we will discuss. So is there anything that I'm missing?
I mean, I think you got it. You covered a lot of stuff there.
Well, you got a lot going on.
I sure do.
I'm excited because Lauren and I actually, we're locals. We've never met, but we live in the same area, and we have some people that we know that are in common. So I feel like we're connected on a different level. But so Lauren, I know that obviously you were diagnosed with breast cancer, but can you tell us a little bit more about how that all happened? What like how you were diagnosed, what you were diagnosed with specifically, and take us a little bit about that.
Yeah. Okay. So I went to the doctor for my annual. I had actually missed a year. I just had my fourth baby, and I had missed the next year, just forgot about it. So I made the point to make my appointment because a friend of mine was going through a breast cancer diagnosis in Arkansas, where I went to school. I met her out there. So I was like, in her honor, I'm going to get my stuff together and make sure that I'm going back to the doctor. A little bit of backstory about me is I have something called vasovagal syncope. So I pass out a lot at doctors. My body goes into like a fight or flight. So I have bad experiences a lot of the doctors. So I'm not
Yeah.
banging
You're
down
not
their
trying to go
door
to the
make
doctor.
appointments. Right.
Yeah.
So I was like, her and I are very close. Her name is Paula. And I was like, she will be very happy I'm being an adult about this and making these appointments. So I made my appointment to go to the gynecologist for my annual, and it fell on the same day that she was ringing her bell for her last cancer treatment. And it actually got postponed to that day. So I was supposed to be able to FaceTime with her, and I didn't get to because I was physically in the appointment. And while I was in there, the doctor had said, I was 37, and he said, it's time for your mammogram. We're going to do a mammogram and we're going to do blood work. I go get the mammogram. Maybe he'll leave me alone about the blood work. Maybe I can get out of getting a needle and I can skip the blood work. I did half of it. That'll be good enough. Plus, it's like, my friend is going through this, and I'll get myself checked. But I thought for sure it would be a pointless check. I am 37 years old. I have worked out my entire life. I like to say that I was like crazy about food before it was cool, and products and all of that. Like before it was like really in, I was always worried about like what laundry detergent we're using, and what at the gym we did an armpit cleanse.
Nice.
Like years ago, where we wanted to switch from deodorant that had all of the chemicals in it into something more natural. So everyone bought like this, basically a face mask, and you have to get all of the
like
product
detoxing your armpits.
You have to detox first. So like we were always thinking about those things. So I thought for sure I'm just going through the motions of the mammogram, and he'll leave me alone about the blood work. So I went for my mammogram maybe a week later, and I actually passed out during the mammogram.
Oh, gosh. Oh my gosh, that must have been awful. Just imagining.
And I even brought my daughter with me to the mammogram because part of this is like, I try to make it as normal as possible going to the doctor. Like if I don't get worked up about it, if I just treat it, everything is normal. So I was like, I'm going to bring my daughter because everything is going to be okay. There are no needles involved. But my mammogram hurt, and it hurt only on one side. So I did
Right.
the one side, the right side, and it was fine. And then I went over to the left side and it hurt. And I was trying to just like power through it. But I was like, breast in, falling down
Oh
onto the
my
floor.
gosh.
So
Oh,
when I pass out, I don't know where I am when I wake up. And it's like this, I throw up everywhere and this whole big thing. So
wow.
my husband had to come pick me up. And it took me a long time to recover. I was like on the couch recovering, and I don't feel good for a few days. And I was getting calls to come back to finish my mammogram. And even people who are nurses that know me, don't put yourself through that again. There's not like, you're fine, you're so healthy.
Yeah.
And then the calls were getting more concerning. And not only was the place where I got the mammogram calling, but now my doctor's office.
Oh boy.
And the words they were using wasn't let's finish your mammogram, but more like we think we saw something.
Yeah.
So I was starting to panic a little bit. And it turns out I was in the shower, like, why did that side hurt? And I started feeling, and I was like, there is a lump there. And I knew in that moment. But it was interesting because I had gotten a full exam and my doctor didn't find it. He didn't feel it. He was just
Yeah.
sending me because he sends people early. And that's how I found
Wow.
it.
That is like a very intense story because I mean, definitely not as serious, but my husband has the similar reaction to going to the doctor where he like just a physical reaction, especially if there's like needles or any kinds of tests. And then I've seen that what that is. And then I've also been diagnosed, and going through a mammogram is not fun generally, whether you are concerned or not, and add that to it. That's a lot. So how, like, when did you get the official diagnosis? So and then what happened after that? Did you immediately go more testing, and how did you deal with all of that testing?
So
you know,
they brought me to another location. They're like, you can sit at this location. And they're like, we need to do it again. So
oh
they
gosh.
medicated me this time. But so I just tried to get through it. So I've never taken medication for it. So they had prescribed me Xanax,
Mhm.
and I'm not used to it. So I walk in there and I'm crying, I'm like shaking, and it's all about this impending diagnosis that's coming,
Yeah.
right? I have 4 young kids at home. They're 11 or 10, 7, 4 and 3 at the time, or 3 and 2
Wow.
at the time. So I am just full panic mode, and I'm telling them, I'm like, they gave me Xanax, and all the techs and nurses just look at me and say, we know. And I was just like, oh, okay, because I didn't think it was working. And I remember it was my birthday. It was coming around to my
Oh
birthday,
jeez.
and I had gotten a biopsy, and I'm waiting for the results. And I took a picture of myself, like a before and after kind of thing, just for me, because
Yeah.
I hadn't worked out like I used to for the past maybe year. And I was like, this is a wake up call. I am going to, I'm turning 38. As soon as I hear that I'm fine, as soon as I just get that, validation that I'm okay, I'm going to go back to making sure that I take care of myself, because I put myself on the back burner like we all do when we have kids and get married and all those things.
Yeah.
And so I have this really sad picture of myself from a year ago, because
Oh.
I'm like so nervous, and I'm like, I know I'm going to be fine. I've
Yeah.
got to be fine. Right. And I was at I'm waiting for the biopsy results, and I'm at my son's cross country meet, and bless this radiologist's heart that he did not make me wait. He called me at 4:30 on a Friday, and he did not make me wait over until Monday. And my son is running, he is racing, and I'm just like walking and like panicking in a parking lot as he tells me
Oh my
the
gosh.
news that it is in fact cancer. And I just remember saying to him, but I'm so young. And he
Yeah.
was like, yep. He
Well,
was just like,
you
the
were,
age is not
yes.
in his world. It's the age is nothing. But to
I mean, that's
me,
good. Yeah.
and what I had known about breast cancer, like, what?
Yeah.
That doesn't happen at that age.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'm glad your doctor feels that way because I do feel like most actually have the opposite view. Like, you're young. We don't really have to worry about it just yet. So I think that's actually an amazing thing. So when you were on that phone call, did you only get informed that you had been diagnosed, or did you get any details regarding the biopsy, like what type of cancer, or did you have to wait until you met with somebody else?
He did tell me, he's like, but there's a silver lining. You know, it's like, okay, it's going to be
Yeah,
hard
like
for
what?
me to,
Yeah.
right. But he's like, he said it is responsive to hormone. Okay. It
Okay,
is
yeah.
estrogen positive. And I was just like having a hard time finding that silver lining in that moment. But he did tell me that, and then of course you learn that you don't know what stage you are, and you now get to
Right.
freak out about everything you felt over the past 10 years. And I actually I developed a pain over the next few weeks under my rib cage because I just one day I remembered that after one of my kids, that when I would say lay down on the floor for a burpee or something like that during a workout because it's a hard floor, I remembered that a part of my stomach would hurt. And at the time I was like, oh, all my stuff is going back together from being pregnant. So I didn't think anything of it. And then in that moment, I'm like, that's cancer. It's everywhere. And that hurt, that ached until I found out that I was stage one, but it hurt
Yeah.
every day. It was like it just manifested in my panic.
That's wild. I mean, that's so true though. I feel like because your brain is all that's thinking about at that point. So, and how long was it between the time you found out you were diagnosed to when you actually found out this stage? Because I feel like that time frame is such a dark period of time because you're thinking like worst case scenario. You're thinking everything because they're not telling you, you don't have the details. So your brain's going in 1,000 different directions.
Right. It was longer. I think they normally say 6 weeks, but it was longer than 6 weeks. So I was starting to wonder, what does that mean that it's taking longer? But that is, I know that some doctors' procedures, as they know right in the surgery, they're able to what they called light it up so that
Right.
they knew right then and there if it was in
Yeah.
your lymph nodes. But the way that my doctor does it is she sends it off.
Okay.
So I had to wait a very long time. And of course, I'm coming up on the anniversary of my surgery date, which was November 1st. So I
Oh,
had
wow.
to wait all through the holidays. Right.
That's intense. That's so intense. Oh my gosh. I know. I I did have the light it up as you called it. So uh, I learned the diagnosis or the stage two times, I would say, because when I first was diagnosed, they gave me like the clinical staging, and then months later, I was diagnosed at a different stage because of what was going on in the surgery. So that waiting time is just so brutal because you just want to know. But so you had surgery on November 1st. You had a double mastectomy. How did that go for you? What was it like going through it and then the recovery process? Being that you're a very healthy person and your body, I'm sure, could tolerate the recovery, but knowing that you can't, your body also doesn't want to be at the doctor's office. How was that all for you?
I feel like my doctors were so caring. And so to go back to being prescribed Xanax for the first time, I ended up having a panic attack
Oh God.
from, I guess, when the Xanax starts coming out of your system and being metabolized, and I guess some people, there's a side effect of you can have a panic attack. And I was out to lunch. I had scheduled it with a friend before any of this. Like, we scheduled it so far out, and we were out to lunch, and I hadn't seen her in so long, and I was being so weird because I didn't realize what was happening. And I was just like, I have to go. Like, I need to leave. And I ended up, my husband is a police officer, and I were having lunch in the town he works in. And I was like, if I call an ambulance because I think I'm having a heart attack, he's gonna
Uh,
kill me. Okay. So I call a friend that's a nurse, and she is like, you're not having a heart attack, you're having a panic attack.
Oh,
And I was like, oh. And she is so sweet. I just walked the neighborhoods and she just like talked me down. But it was so scary during that time. But
yeah.
fast forward is the doctors switched my prescription. So they were just so kind in that before I had any IVs or anything, they gave me something. They switched me to diazepam. So just the consideration, and there's paperwork that has to go into that, but just to make sure. And they would have the anesthesiologist call me and promise me that the medications don't mix and I won't die. Because I was like, I'm going
Yes.
to have extra drugs in me. And they're like, that's actually what we give you. So I'm very nervous. I'm saying all that to say I get very nervous about medical things.
Yeah,
So this has put me in all of like my worst nightmare situations.
absolutely. Yeah.
But I it has made me like face these things head on. As like sick as that sounds, I've had to, face my fears. So I am now like just a little bit better with all that stuff. But
Love
the
that.
care that my doctors gave me was just amazing.
Good. I'm so glad to hear that because I feel like that could go either way. And, I'm glad being in your situation that you do have that reaction. People took extra good care of you and that you could kind of build off that going forward. Because I feel like, a lot of people can get, in regards to breast cancer alone, like triggered doing anything that revolves being healthy or sick and going to the doctor. And there's a lot of layers to that. So I'm glad you feel a little bit more resilient in that regard. Um, Hopefully that will continue to get better for you because I know it's so rough. So back to your double mastectomy. Um, how did recovery go for you?
So it was really interesting to me that there isn't, or at least I didn't receive a ton of instruction about afterwards. So you start talking to other women and wondering like, well, my doctor said this and my doctor said that and my doctor said wait, and you're trying to like, piece things together. I didn't have a hard time not doing what I wasn't, I didn't use my arms, right? But I was quick to use my legs. So
Right.
I think 10 days after my surgery, I was legs only on a stationary bike,
Nice.
just trying to
Move.
move myself
Yeah.
because I believe that movement is medicine. I think I wasn't doing anything crazy. I was just trying to be like a little sweaty and
Yeah.
just get the blood pumping and kind of move my body in a way it's used to moving.
I love that. I think that's so and so important to say because you don't I think some people get caught up in the fact that they can't do certain things so they don't do anything at all. And I think finding ways to adapt and, it doesn't have to be perfect, but it can go a long way, especially for your mental health. So I think that's a really good point to make. Don, did you have expanders or did you go to implants right away or how did that work for you?
So I went to expanders,
Okay.
and I
Oof.
was going through the whole, do I do saline or do I do silicone? Because I was
Hmm.
really afraid of silicone seeping into my body and
Yep.
not knowing about it. I had two friends that had, while all of this was happening, they had explants and both of them had leaks and didn't know about it. They didn't know about either one. And they were the gummy bears that everyone
Hmm.
says that don't leak. So I was really nervous about it. So I went with saline and it ruptured
Oh,
within
jeez.
3 months.
Oh my gosh.
So I've gotten way more comfortable with surgery. So I had to have it done again. And this time I went with silicone. And I'm just at the point where I have tried. And if this also leaks and I somehow figure it out, then I'm just probably going to go flat at
Yeah.
this point.
Yeah, I understand what I had a different choice, but that's kind of where I landed. Like if this doesn't work out, flat it is and that's okay. That's what it has to be. Um so I know I saw you on your Instagram working out pretty soon. I feel like I guess it was after you had that fit or like after you had your silicone in using your arms and stuff. So how did that work out for you? I'm asking all these things just 'cause I'm very curious, but I really want to get to what you're doing now. But yeah, how did like using your arms after that go for you? Because you clearly lift a lot of things. And I know a lot of people going through this are afraid of that. So what was your experience with that?
So I found it very interesting that I felt that I recovered so much faster from that third surgery, that switch to silicone. It was also interesting that when I would talk with my plastic surgeon, he would answer me when I would start asking about timelines. Would it be okay to do this in this timeline? And he has done CrossFit before. So I felt really good about that because not everyone understands what CrossFit
Yeah.
is and it can be a little intense. So I wanted him to understand, like, I'm going to be holding weight in weird positions. And I felt good that he knew that, but that's not what their job is.
Right.
So it gets a little bit interesting because I would ask questions like, do you think that I can run at 6 weeks? Do you think I can do a pull up at 8 weeks? Like just try to get an idea. And he would answer me in ways like, if you have to. I'm like, well, I don't have to. I want to know, like, what should I expect? How do I like on ramp myself back into it? And he would answer me in other ways, like, that sounds reasonable. So, like, nothing definitive. So I really
Right.
realized that I was going to have to figure this out myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I feel like they have to play it safe, which I get, but also that is a little of a disservice to people they don't, this is such a huge change in their lives and they want to do things right. And it could also, I feel like doing less sometimes is more hurtful than anything because, I know some people who can't even lift their arms up, from going through this because I think it was lack of movement amongst other things going on. But what did you learn figuring it out yourself? What did you learn for yourself that you were able to do and what worked for you?
So I definitely eased myself in. I would start, and I had to redo this 3 different times, right? So it was almost
Mm,
like I kind of like played with my method a little bit differently each time. And of course, this is, for me.
yeah.
Um, but I would start just getting my body used to moving again. So again, sitting on an assault bike or a stationary bike, legs only, just I got to get my heart rate back up again. I got to get used to having my heart rate up. And then I would start with weights, very light weights, in a manner where I was lifting them and keeping them very close to my body. And then slowly a little bit further away from my body. And then slowly pushing overhead or pushing in a way that's similar to a bench press. And everything was very felt out and playing it safe until I just felt really good about it. I noticed that when I was very, very safe the first time around and very slow, I actually developed a cyst in my armpit that
Oh,
ended
wow.
up having to be drained. But and that could just be that was a different surgery. That was after the double mastectomy. But when I was like, my body really is resilient, and I went really slow last time and everything was okay, but I'm feeling it out again and I really feel okay. I feel strong. I waited the allotted time that the doctor was like, we're just worried about the placement.
Right.
Nothing was muscular. Nobody was worried about that. It was more like, we don't want the implants to drop. We want them to
Right.
sit where they're sitting. We need the pocket to form. So knowing those things and keeping that in mind um, helped me just slowly work in my arms again. But it was important for my joint to move in all the directions that my joints were made to move in. I think that something that also pushed me a little bit faster is that I had decided that I wasn't going to take tamoxifen because of all the side effects. And
Okay.
then my stepdad died out of nowhere. He just called me one day and was like, oh, they think they see a blood clot.
Oh
So I'm going to
gosh.
go to the ER. It was a blood clot, but it was a tumor that was coming out of his liver and towards his heart. And it was cancer. He had no idea, and he never woke up from surgery.
I am so
Um,
sorry. Oh my
so
gosh.
that scared the crap out of me. So I began taking tamoxifen, and I was like, okay, I have to take care of myself. I have to do
Yeah.
all the things. I have to work out.
Wow, that is so intense. How I'm just thinking about his situation and circumstance, like they how that even happened, and I'm so sorry that you experienced that. And as a person generally, as that's your father-in-law, but also as someone who's also experiencing cancer, that just hits on a whole different level. Um how are
It
you
was my stepdad.
I'm sorry, your stepdad, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's okay.
Um oh my god. I'm so sorry. How did you move forward after that? Is that was part of like taking action like that healing for you at all, kind of? Or how did you heal from that and while you're also healing yourself?
I'm coming up. I just passed the 1 year of diagnosis and coming up on surgery, and I think that I've had to hold everything together for so long because I also own small businesses where I work out physically. Like I'm the head coach in them, so I had to
Yeah.
jump back in, and it's been a little bit of a blessing in that I've been very busy, but it hasn't really allowed me to deal with everything. So, for instance, I came back up on my yearly visit to the gynecologist, and I didn't expect it, but I sat in the waiting room and I just started crying.
Oh, yeah.
And it was almost like I was mourning the person that went in there 1 year ago,
Yeah.
completely, like almost like innocent, like not even realizing what was going on. Like I was sad for that woman,
Yeah.
as weird as that is to say, but I was just sad for that optimism I had, like not
I know.
realizing what was going on
Yeah.
because everything is different now.
Yeah, I don't think that's weird at all. I feel like that's actually a very common feeling, like it's like you're mourning your past self, and that like ignorance is bliss kind of situation where you don't even have to think about it. Like I miss those days where you're just not like consumed with cancer,
Right.
it's completely valid. And something like going to the doctor is like the same place that you went where you have so many emotions and like memories attached to regarding cancer. Like I would be crying as well, to be honest
Right.
with you. Um, so you're on tamoxifen now still, right?
Yes.
How has that been going?
Well, I am taking a half dose. My my oncologist is on board with it. She is hoping that I eventually take the full dose. I asked her at one point, I said to her, "What would you do if I was your daughter?" And
Oof.
she said, "I would hide it in your oatmeal." And and I think that was something that went far for me too.
Yeah.
That she had felt that way.
It's so
But
hard too because you want to be able to be healthy, and you don't associate like health with medications and altering your natural body pathways and all those things. So it's hard. Like even with cancer, it's hard to make those choices.
right. And there is no denying that estrogen is good for us. So it's
Right.
hard to wrap your mind around when you plug those receptors. There has to be a cascade of other things that happen. And it's hard to completely get on board with this pill is making me better. It's making me more healthy. I'm not sure. But
Right.
for right now, I'm taking it.
Right. I think it's less of making you healthy. It's just preventing the like worst case scenario, or it's trying to prevent worst
Yeah.
case scenario. So it's like you're kind of just stuck between a rock and a hard place and in that way. And most women, I mean, everybody has their own choice to make in terms of wanting to take it or not. They don't have to. No one has to do anything. But when your doctors, insisting, there's statistics and there's so many things that you just are constantly seen with, it's hard to ignore those things. So I think it's absolutely normal, and wanting to take the half dose, I think that's a great step in between of like kind of getting there and making the right choice for yourself, which is so important because you have to live with that.
I also had one visit with my breast surgeon who I just adore her. I think she is just so fantastic. And she got teary-eyed and was like, I think about you every day. Will you
Oh,
please just take the medication? And I
oh,
was just like, I
yeah.
trusted
Oh,
her
gosh.
enough for the surgery. Like, I just really believed in her. I had interviewed different doctors, and we agree on a lot of things medically. So it's like, why would I not do the thing that she's
Yeah.
essentially begging me to do?
Yeah. Someone you trust. Who, I feel like you told me who your doctor was. What, remind me?
Dr. Barbara Schneider.
Okay. Yeah, you did. Yeah, you did tell me that because I've heard about her as well. Wonderful things too. Yeah, it's hard to when somebody you trust, especially after you've interviewed people and that's who you decided on, like you absolutely trust in her. Yeah, it's hard. Are you just kind of taking it day by day and seeing what you want to do going forward, or you plan to up your dose?
I I don't know. I'm not I'm not I feel like I'm good where I am right now. I'm not closed off that I won't up it. But I don't think I would stop it either because I'm a few months in, maybe 3 or 4 months in now, and I don't know that I have very many side effects
Great.
right now. I also thought I really am happy that I did the window of time. It wasn't a little bit, it was 8 months that I wasn't taking anything. But I would notice things and I would say to my husband, if I was taking tamoxifen, I would blame that on tamoxifen right now. And I would notice another
Interesting.
thing
Yeah.
and I would say, if I was taking the medication, I would blame that right now. I had gotten into running again, like you know, things were starting to bother me that hadn't
Yeah.
bothered me when I was younger. And I would tell my husband, if I was taking medication, I would blame that. So I am glad for that little window that those things happened because it did allow me, like, something would bother me and I'm like, oh, that's, those are my joints. They're never going to work again.
Mhm.
And I was able to like breathe and say, some things popped up before you were taking anything and it resolved. So as of now, I'm not really experiencing side effects, which I'm grateful for.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is an amazing thing. And I like your mindset on that because it's so true. I feel like we as cancer patients and you see or you feel something and you try to relate it to something regarding whether it's a medication or even cancer coming back. And like it's so easy to do those things. So I'm sure that helps you kind of hash it out with yourself when you are feeling these things now. So now you're taking the half dose, you're doing all you can in terms of working out, eating the right things, and taking all the proper actions that you've done your whole life, and now you want to help others, right? So
Right.
let's talk about that because I think that's really so awesome what you're doing.
So I have been doing that, and I didn't even realize I'm like, I'm almost on 20 years of coaching people and
That's
personal training
awesome.
people. And it's always been, I've worked with women with MS. I work with amputees. I've worked with people in different situations, thyroid cancer. And when I was going through this, I reached out to everybody I could think of that was a big name and knew a lot of people in CrossFit. And specifically CrossFit because we do weird stuff. We hold barbells over our head and squat at the same time. We
Yeah.
do pull ups where our chest touches the bar. So it's a very deep pull. And I wanted to know, hey, what did you do with an implant? How was medication for you? Were you never able to work out again? Like, you're running every worst case scenario. And I couldn't find one person to connect with,
Yeah.
not one person. Eventually, I found another gym owner, which that was great, but she wasn't a competitive CrossFitter. So she couldn't necessarily help me with what is my life going to look like after a mastectomy. Because at that point, I was even thinking about going flat. And there was no
Yeah.
one to talk to about it. So I definitely want to be a resource for people to even talk about that with. And then also during my experience of kind of having to feel out my own recovery and my own time getting back into a fitness routine and the answers that I was able to work with the answers that I got because I have been doing this for so long. But I thought about, what would other women do when they were like, probably so scared to not work out because
Mm-hmm.
they're like, I got to take care of myself, but I'm not getting any direction. And I don't think it's a fault of the doctors. Again, that's not their job. That's not what
Right.
they went to school for. So there has to be a place for somebody to fill that gap. So I started working with women that are in similar situations. They're trying to take care of themselves the best that they can, work out, and just kind of get back to life, but also protect themselves.
Absolutely. Now, I know you had mentioned working with like you have grants and whatnot for the program. Is that correct?
So the grants are not through me. We did do a fundraiser for a group called Compete for a Cure, and they will pay for a woman's fitness routine,
Mm-hmm.
mental health, and nutrition for 3 months.
Oh, that's awesome.
Um, they will definitely cover joining a gym, and they will also cover working with a certified cancer expert for like one-on-one training. And they have a whole list of people that you can connect with. It's really wonderful.
That's
You
amazing.
see all of these fundraisers and you're like, what's happening? Where is all this money going to? And I just felt like they're really doing something. They were there for me. They were one of the first people that reached out to me when I was diagnosed, especially in the CrossFit community. And I was so appreciative that I definitely want to get the word out there about them.
Yeah.
If people are looking for fundraising and want to make an actual impact, I always tell them like they actually put the money in the hands of the women to go take care of themselves.
I love that so much. And you're so right. I feel like that is so, so needed. And like that would make, honestly, I feel like that it's necessary for all of those things, right? But giving them tangible things to just get after and help them in that post cancer world, especially in regards to fitness and health. I think that's so amazing. Um, yeah. So I love that. I'm just writing the name down. um,
Yeah,
so
yeah, Compete for a Cure. They're great.
tell us more. What is your goals? Like, what are you trying to do going forward, and how can people use you as a resource?
So I have started working with women both remotely and in person. I work with accountability, goal setting, gratitude is worked in there as well. And I work along with their doctors, of course, and we just come up with a plan to stay consistent and also have something positive to focus on. Because
Yeah.
in this, we can just get so beat down on what is happening or how we're feeling. So just 1 hour a day to focus on something positive, something that we can do for ourselves, just goes such a long way.
That's amazing. And it's just, stuff like this makes me so like pumped up because I feel that similar need to like want to help, and I just find it so amazing when someone like yourself went through something that was just life altering, and your focus is on like, you're seeing the holes, you're seeing the gaps that you want to fill and like that you want to give back to. And I think a lot of the cancer community feels that way. Like they want to help people who are in the shoes that you've been in, and they want to give back. And it just amazes me every time I talk to somebody like you that wants to do more and help and provide that resource. And it's not easy to do, putting yourself out there and, changing the way you normally would do things. And I applaud you for that. I think that's amazing.
Thank you.
And just, yeah, that's really all I want to say was that it's awesome. And
Well,
I'm
you're forever
excited for it.
changed, right? And I
Yeah.
think you have something terrible happened, but I think it changes how you look at being here,
Yeah.
about, having time here, and it makes you want to be better. It makes you want to help people. How could you not know what it feels like and then not want to turn around and help another woman who is in that moment feeling that?
Yeah, especially like when you were saying like you couldn't find somebody in CrossFit that really had all those answers, and now that you've experienced it, you can give that to somebody. I think that's such a beautiful thing and so necessary. That's why we're on this podcast today, is because I wanted somebody like me. Like, I needed to find somebody like me that can give me these answers. And, I want to be able to at least, like, somebody's going to connect to this story, and whether they relate to your story, whether they relate to CrossFit, or even use you as someone who could help them in terms of fitness and health after cancer. So I thank you for being here. And now, do you have how does somebody go about, utilizing you? Is there an application? Do they just sign up? What's the process?
So I can be reached at Lauren Connorfit on Instagram. My CrossFit gym is CrossFit Arcs and CrossFit Arc South. So we're in New Jersey, but right now those are the points of contact. Compete for a Cure. If you'd like to work with their grants, you go to their website and click on support, and they walk you through a whole application there. I have my own applications, but I like to speak with women and get a feel of what's going on and get a little bit deeper into their story. So we usually start with a call.
Okay, that's great. Now, I always ask everybody, if you could tell yourself in the beginning, one thing, after everything that you've learned,
Ooh.
what would you say to yourself?
After everything that I've learned, oh man.
I know there could be a lot.
That you really do have to be your own advocate.
Yeah.
I think that
Absolutely.
It was shocking on how much the different fields disagree. I don't know that I was ready for that. I think that you want to just say, okay, tell me what to do. Tell me like what I need to do so that I'll be okay. And then you realize that everybody you talk to tells you something different.
Mm-hmm.
So you really do need to learn, and you do need to put the time in, and you have to speak for yourself. You need to speak up for yourself.
Absolutely.
So I think that I would just prepare myself like, hey, you're going to have to be interactive in this. You're not going to be able to you might want to just shut down and take the back seat and let people drive for you, but you're going to have to take the reins.
Yeah, step up. And I think it's important. That's such a good point to know. And I also think that if you feel like you are unable to be there and be diligent, have somebody that you trust with you. I know it's said a lot, but I feel like it's so important, because if you're unable to, like, I know there's so much information, just have somebody take notes for you, or like ask to record if the doctors, are allowed to record the situation or whatever, so you could actually process information, because it's just so much. But now, thank you so much for your time. Is there anything else that you want to cover or go over, let the audience know before we get out of here?
I would just say that, I hate saying like everything is going to be okay, right? I hate that, but don't be afraid to live. That was something that my doctor said, because I was so worried about every little thing and every little scenario and asking all these questions. And she just stopped me and she said, you're going to have to live. You're alive. Like, you're going to have to go live now.
Yeah.
And that message was big for me. So, to stop worrying about every little thing and live. Like, that's what I'm so worried about, right? I want to live. Yeah. And why am I spending my time being so worried?
Yeah, I think you could be diligent and also still live, like, it's living doesn't mean ignoring everything, but it just means prioritizing your life over prioritizing what could be. And I agree that was a huge lesson learned, afterwards, because you do, like, I'm sure like, you want to take every step you can to feel that control. You want to control your health and you want to do everything you can, but sometimes that could be a little overbearing, and it could take away from what you are trying to do, like you said. So, like, live your life. So that's just such a great message.
Or it could just, take you to a negative place that you don't need to be in.
Yeah, 100%. So that's an amazing message to end it on. So thank you again, Lauren. It was such a nice time talking to you. I hope to meet you one day soon.
I'm so glad that you do this.
Oh, thank you. Yeah. It's so funny because I would never have, a couple years ago, I would have never said that I would be doing it. So.
Well, right. You're definitely making an impact. My husband was watching me cry one night and he was like, there's this woman you should reach out to. You guys have a lot of
Oh,
similar thoughts, and I think that she can help you.
oh my God, I love
So
that.
good job doing what you're doing.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. It means a lot.